record. Oh yeah, recording is definitely in progress now. All right, so uh hmm, let me see what I have here as far as demonstration files from years past here. Because it's a great question. It's like, what are the next steps and how do you bridge? And so we'll go over some Illustrator. Here are some examples of diagrams that I've shown students in the past. Let's say you have temperature information or noise information or something like that, sort of making a height field or some sort of, readout where you can actually sort of show where you have the most or the least. Um, let's see. Here's an exploded massing. Again, this is Rhino and Illustrator. So I'll show some examples here, and I'll probably pull some of these open and show you how they're done in Illustrator from the Rhino model. These all look like they were a vector. So what I did is probably brought from Rhino in as an Illustrator file, exported from Rhino as an Illustrator file, .ai file. So I'll show this workflow just a little bit, but just wanted to go over a few of these things. We'll talk about cutting sections and plans and things like that later. All right, so here's one with that, just similar to what we were just looking at in Revit. This was done in Rhino with Grasshopper and a little bit of Illustrator. With a plugin that's kind of hard to get some people like we had problems with it last year getting it to work on some people's laptops. So that's why I'm sort of switching over to Revit, and Revit seems to work a little better in that regard without having to load up a bunch of plugins like Ladybug and Honeybee and Radiance and all those other things. We did do a windrows with weather data. I can probably just generate these for you yourself for everybody, because it's just taking weather data and just publishing them out, just so you have it. What a windrows is, for instance, this is between 1st of January to 31 December. So this is over a year based off of the weather data collected at Las Vegas, the airport. And so you can see the predominant winds are coming from the southwest, west, southwest, south, southwest, and then the south. It looks like maybe during key times there's some coming from the north and the northwest, a little bit from the northeast, not a lot from the east and southeast. Right. So that's how you read a windrows is, this is the sort of direction, but then also the sort of how far it goes and how much red you have. Talks about the sort of volume of wind. Okay. We actually then I made something where you could actually like sort of make these arrows, and then you could bring them into Illustrator and try to color them in a little bit to sort of show predominant winds. This was from September to November. So in that swing season, autumn time, where you're getting some north and then you're also getting some southwest, etc. I think I was just showing, I'm just going through some of these files to see how useful some of these are and aren't. And then we'll go through some of these workflows. But what you can see is that, you might have a diagram, but oftentimes you have like several graphics that you're compositing together. So that's why I'm going to sort of record this and talk about it. Okay, let's see here. What else do we have? There is a radiation analysis, but we're just going to look at, we'll use Revit and its shadows and shade. It's just as useful. Here's the sun path, but we can use Revit for that. I was going to look for some more examples. I thought I had a few, maybe in a different, this was from 2020. These things, this all become a blur to me after a while. Let's see what we have here in 2021 that might be useful. Just feedback. Sun path. That's interesting. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going through thumbnails in front of you guys, but maybe also it gives you a sense of what some of these things might look like. Okay, let's see here. Maybe I look at last year's and have a better CAD mapper entourage, drawing example, submissions, weather files. That was somebody's diagram. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Okay, you can see that's a JPEG. All right. Okay, so let me open up Illustrator and let me also get Windows fired up here. And then I can start to open things and mix and match as I need. Because I'll use Windows, Rhino on Windows, and then I use Illustrator or Photoshop on the Mac side here. Let's see, what do we have here? That's a good example. I'll open that up in Illustrator while we look. So Illustrator is a great tool if you know how to use it. If you have somebody who can show you, what it looks like and things like that. So this is an example, like let's say I exported my Axon drawing from Rhino as a .ai file, an Illustrator file. Then this is what it looks like, what I get out. Oh, apparently I have a generative AI hovering menu now in Illustrator, just like in Photoshop. Okay, cool. That's interesting. Um, so one thing you'll notice is that unlike a JPEG or a PNG that you bring into Photoshop, where if you zoom in, you see basically the grid of pixels and each pixel is assigned a color. It's called a raster graphic. When you go from Rhino to Illustrator, you make a vector graphic. In other words, all of these lines are still here. All the line work is still there and intact. And you can select it. You can change its line weight. You can zoom in or out. It doesn't pixelate. And so it's Illustrator is called a vector graphics tool. And you can also see probably, indeed, that there are some layers here that were from Rhino when we exported it out. So we can select things by layer as well. But let me just sort of show you what Illustrator does, and then I can go through some workflows. All right. So let me, if you want, just pay attention really quickly, and I'll show you a few things. But then I can go back and we can talk about how we did it. All right. So here is a typical sort of vector drawing from Rhino, and then I bring it into Illustrator, and as you can see, I can select things. It looks like I have some things locked. Yep. So if I select these, I can actually crank up or crank down their line weights, make them more or less dark. I can go around and start to sort of clean things up, right? Like, that looks like a stray thing. I don't really care about that little median. Sometimes when you get a lot of curves really close together, it starts to get really dark, and then you don't really want that, right? I don't really want this cylinder to stand out any more than anything else on the drawing. So sometimes I go back through and just sort of audit. But you can see again, oops, I just deleted the wrong thing away there. Then you can go back through each of these lines and curves. They're all individual lines and curves. And I can then begin to draw more. I could, again, over here in Illustrator, hopefully you can see my screen. I have tools like I can select things, but then I can also draw lines, right? Or other shapes. What makes this different than Rhino is that it's not going to do anything precise. You don't draw at full scale like an AutoCAD, Rhino, and Revit. You're drawing things like this is graphic design scale. So you're drawing things for like 8.5 by 11 paper, or tabloid 11 by 17, or A2 or A4, or something like that. And so also not only can I sort of change the outline of the line work, color and stroke, or sorry, weight, but I can also give it a fill color. So I could also come over here and load some swatches first of all. Open a swatch library, like, I don't know, a normal one? What's going on here? Odd that there aren't any loaded right away. So anyway, let me just say open swatch library, color books. Let's try, do we have a Pantone? Where are the Pantones? Well, anyway, I'll just open up a few here, right? And maybe pop those in there. All right, so if I have something selected, I can change its line color and also its fill color. Okay. Or I can make it transparent or, give it no outline, etc. Right? So um, let me just, I don't know why I don't have like any real swatches here. That's really odd. Like, come on, help me out here, Illustrator. Yeesh. System, no. Default swatches. Okay, yeah, that would help. Okay, great. So I could turn this back to black outline. I can fill this in. Again, I can go back and forth between the outline or the fill and then assign a color to it, right? Same thing here. And then of course I have something called, instead of calling it lines, they call them strokes. So I can change the stroke weight, what normally I would say a line weight. It's right here. It looks like there's sort of lines with different thicknesses. That icon pops up. So I can change its line weight. I can make it super beefy or really nice and thin and crisp. I could change it into like a dashed line. I can give it a certain, um, and I can give it a certain cadence. Let's say I want 2 points, 3 points, sort of cadence, right? Change it. I can give it arrowheads, etc. Right? So there's a lot of things you can do inside of Illustrator. We constantly see these icons now with our map apps and things like that, and web apps. So sometimes I found that these can be really handy to um, use when you're just trying to map certain things. Maybe you color code them, or maybe just use them in a particular way. This is an example, maybe it's noise or smell, but sort of talking about a sort of ground zero and then something sort of wafting outwards or radiating outwards. Um, but all of these things are basically just shapes, right? So I can go here and I can, make, let's say, a circle or a square or a rectangle. Um, this is just a simple circle, right? It just has a fill to it. So I selected, you can see the fill. Um, and then this one's also just a circle, but instead of a fill, it just has a stroke. And then this one's slightly larger, and the stroke color is just slightly lighter. And then again, right? So anyway, you can sort of see that there's ways of doing these things. Um, let's see, what else? What else? I can make a fill gradient, right? Like I can give it a gradient. In fact, there's a gradient tool right here. And in fact, there is something here as well. So if I selected, let's say, this circle and brought it over here, I want to make it in a gradient. I want to make sure I have the fill on. And I could say gradient, what type of gradient? Let's make it a radial gradient. Maybe I'm going to switch these colors around so it starts dark in the center and radiates out to white. I can give it more white, less white, sort of have a gradient out quicker. And then here I can change its color. So maybe I go back to, I don't know why it's only black or white. New gradient swatch. What? Hmm. These things constantly change. It's annoying. Um, let's see. Here we go. This is like the syllabus, right? As soon as I'm doing this in front of people, it doesn't work. Let me see what this looks like so far. Okay. And that's how to change the color, but it won't actually let me give it a color. So that's very odd. Let's see. Oh, here we go. RGB palette here. So let's say I'm really into say I'm really into magenta or something, right? So then you can start to, give something that, look at this, it's fading to white. Now that's really kind of weird, right? When I put it over existing line work. Um, let's see, can I simply give it opacity of 0? Ah, here we go. There we go. Now we're cooking. All right. So now, so again, I'm just sort of going over these things really quickly, just so you can sort of get maybe some ideas on something you'd like to try. Um, how did I make these? I want to say I did something silly, like ripped it off of somewhere else. So if I just open up my web browser, for instance, and I say vector graphics, Vector, how about vector graphics for mapping in Illustrator, or map vector graphics or something like that. I can go to images. Sometimes they'll have vector things graphics that you can just download and then open up and copy and paste around in Illustrator. Let's see, map graphics, icons, vector. Let's just do that, keywords, sort of a word salad here. Right, so it looks like I'm getting some things here. Let's say this is not vector. Let's say I just see like a typical image. In fact, let me just open this up. Open image, a new tab. And let me just save this to downloads. Right, and I'll show you how you can convert something from raster into a vector format. I'll just go ahead and pull this in. This is a JPEG, so it's very much, if you look at it closely, you start to see the grid of pixels and it pixelates, right? So let me scale this ridiculously large image down, a little smaller here. And there we go. Another way of doing this is you can go to objects. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say trace this, image trace, make and expand an image trace of these things. And voila, now they're vector graphics. Let me just ungroup them. Yeah. And so now I have a set of these I can copy and paste around. Oops. I think I was actually selecting an inside shape there somehow. There we go. Yeah. You never know what you'll get. There we are. Here we have a shape, and then of course I have a, you know, I don't want to do that. Oh, here we go. Swatches. Bright colors. Why not? Okay. Right. So there we have it. Um, let's say I wanted an outline around it. I could give it an outline. Let's see, art and illustration. And let's tone that down. One seems a little harsh as far as a stroke weight, right? Now I'm ready to scale it how I need it and then copy and paste it. So there's lots of different ways you could begin to do this, right? So hopefully this is starting to get towards what you were asking uh, earlier about, now I have the information, I have this model, how do I start to map and create the graphics, right? All right, so
Yeah, this is helping a lot.
let's talk about the workflows then. All right, so how did I get here? Let me just log into Windows, of course. Let's see. I wish I'd done this earlier. There we go. Okay. And I'll show you exactly what this workflow looks like. Because if you don't do something special on Rhino, then you run the risk of, where's my cursor? There it is. I don't know why I created another desktop. That's annoying. Okay, can you see my desktop? I hope. I don't know what I
Yes.
did, but okay, great. So I am just going to I'll just go ahead and open up a file here and I'll find a downtown Las Vegas one. I'm sure there's one on here somewhere. No doubt there is. Just have to wait for everything to start up here, of course. Man, Rhino always used to seem so light. Now it feels a little bloated. Revit's always been bloated. Like, all right. Come on now. All right. I'm just going to go open and let's just see what's on my old desktop here. I'm sure there's a DTLV file of some sort here. Las Vegas downtown, that's an OBJ file. That's probably more than we ever wanted. Building masses downtown will be. Let's try that. Why not? Oh yeah, look at that. That's a lot of downtown. That's probably more than I ever wanted to see. DTLV01. Let's try that. Why not? All right. So that's a drawing. And let me show you how I got there. So this is the model, right? I'm in parallel. I'm in that isometric view. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll just turn this on to, let's say, rendered really quickly. All right, there we are. All right, all right, all right. So I could do that, or I could, let's see, do I have a 767 demo? I do with that. Let's see what this looks like when I put this view display setting on. I spent half my life just waiting around on this little blue wheel to stop turning. I don't know if I like that so much. Let me just check some things here. Do I have my render options? Let's see. Let's go to render properties. Let's see what's going on here. Background color. Skylight is on 360. All right. Just looks a little dark to me. All right. So anyway, I'll just put it in rendered mode just so you can see it. But or maybe I'll go back to wireframe. Let's look at wireframe, right? So if I just take this and export it out as an Illustrator file right now, I'll get all of this sort of wireframe information, all the hidden lines, all of the sort of isoparms that's putting on each of the surfaces, all those little extra lines. I don't want those, right? So what I can do is I can tell Rhino to publish a drawing, a hidden line drawing of this, and I can export that hidden line drawing out to Illustrator, okay? And here's what I do. I say make 2D. That's the command. I just start typing in M-A-K-E 2D, make 2D. And it asks me for the objects to draw, and I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these at once and hit enter. And now it brings up this box, and so it's telling me, okay, well, what viewport do you want to draw? So I'm going to say that let's flatten out this parallel viewport. And do you want hidden lines? Do you want tangent edges? Do you want the scene silhouettes? Let's turn some of these on and off. I don't want all the hidden lines. That's way too much information. Tangent edges, I might leave on. Scene silhouette, maybe I'll put on. The scene silhouette means it's like the sort of edge around everything where there's air behind, right? Like sort of the sort of outer edge, the silhouette edge. Oftentimes we'll give that just a slightly bigger, thicker line weights if we can. Group outputs, I don't want it to group, and I'm going to hit OK. And so what it's doing right now is you can see the progress bar down at the bottom right, 98%. Okay. When I go to top view, you can see that now I have literally a line drawing. You can see it here. It's sort of a flattened line drawing of an axon. Let me just move it out of the way so it's not overlapped and conflicting with the other model info, right? All right. So when I look at it in top view, it looks like an axon. Of course, when I look at it here, you can see that it's really just a flat set of lines and curves. It's just a drawing that I'm looking at in 3 dimensions. All right. So now in top view, right? So I get the right orientation here. This should be a perfect 30-30 axon. I can select this stuff and I'll just say File, export what I have selected, obviously. And then here I just need to sort of set it to the right type of file. You can see that there is literally an Adobe Illustrator file format. Literally. Let's see. I'll just save this to the desktop on the Mac side. I'll call this site axon for diagramming or something like that. And hit OK. Snapshot of current view. I'll just leave this as is and hit OK. All right. Now, one thing I might do before I move this screen around is I might also, let's see here. I might also go back to parallel. Wherever this is. Is it just not set to parallel? Oh, I get it. I was looking at things the wrong way here. Is I might go back and then do the rendered thing if I want to maybe add that afterwards. But let me just show you now. Here's the Illustrator file I just made. Let me just open that up in Illustrator so you can see it. Right there it is, right? Just as we would expect it to look like. So here's the Rhino file. I just need to find the right orientation here. Let's see. Northwest, maybe. Nope. It's annoying that I have to do this. I don't know what I was thinking. Oy vey. Let's see here. Still not the right orientation. No, that's the right orientation. Yeah. So I still might go ahead and again, make this a rendering and go ahead and export this out too, just to have it. Let's capture that to file. Let's make that a PNG, transparent background, parallel viewport, scale 2. Sure, this looks just fine. Okay. Let's save it to the desktop. Let's change it to PNG. Yeah, all right. I'm just waiting. I'm looking at the command line. It's saying view. It's still saying it's working. It'll say it's done when it's done. Yeah, okay. Image successfully saved. So here in Illustrator, there's the line work I had. I can also place an image, file pull down and place. I can place that PNG that I just made. Let's see, that was on the desktop. There it is, view capture.png. It's going to be large, silly large. Okay, come on now. Just going to shrink this down so it fits on the paper, the artboard. So it's kind of close in size to what we have underneath. Yeah. So anyway, I could begin, first of all, I can arrange and send this to back. And I can also, again, here's my layers. I can go ahead and make a new layer and drag that all the way down. And then put this on that layer. Now it's back behind. But if I wanted to match these up, I could. And then I could basically have this as a sort of rendered underlay underneath the lines and line work. Let's see here. I'm just eyeballing it. There are better ways of doing this where you could do the make 2D with the viewport border on so that that you can just line these things up really easily. So from here, right, let's say I'm going to take these curves. Let's see what they are. I'm going to go ahead and bring them down on line weight quite a bit. Maybe I'll bring the other ones as well, the tangents. Let's see what those are. If I have any of them. Bring those down. And then last but not least, maybe even do the scene silhouettes and bring those down in size here. Right. And then I also have a lot of blue line work. I guess that was just the layer color from before. Let me just zoom in here and just ever so slightly adjust some things. These things to align just a smidge better. All right. They can see where things just don't quite align. I just need to sort of resize things just ever so slightly. Let me just select all these things. Let's convert their stroke, all the lines to black. So we don't have that light blue. Looks kind of weird. We still have some blue in places. Let's see here. So let's do this one as well. Convert them all to black. All right. Okay. So I have a series of windows over here. And I have a series of tools, a toolbar over here, and then I have some tools up at the top. So this is like Photoshop, Illustrator, Photoshop, and Design. So if I'll have similar interfaces in that regard, right? So if I'm looking for color swatches and properties of things that I've selected, they're over here. When I want to create something or rotate something, I can do it over here. Let's say, that base underlay is kind of dark. So what I'm going to do is I just have it selected. Oops, I just selected Rhino instead. Oh, come on. Cut it out. Why is it doing that? Sorry, I have that image selected. I don't know why it keeps bringing that to the front. I can turn down its opacity and just lighten it up. So it's just really, really subtle tones. And then if I don't want to accidentally mess up that image, I can just lock that layer so I don't accidentally select it and drag it or something. All right. Now, that's if you want to play around with the line weights yourself, right? Or, like I mentioned before, what you could do is you could just, again, if you have your own sort of um, display mode, like we were doing before. This looks a little dark to me, but whatever. Let me just try to zero in on this a little more here. Then again, I could essentially just sorry, file, let's see, where is it? Edit, no, view, capture to file, save this as a PNG with a transparent background, right? You can see that I have the lines, all the line work that I want. It's just, it's going to be raster, right? So here's the difference when I bring it out this time. Give it a second to actually perform the task here. There we are. Let's see what Rhino's doing here. It done? Is it done? Okay, great. Aye, aye, aye. All right. So let me go file, place, and then Illustrator, right? Okay. Let me make sure I'm on a layer that isn't locked so I can place a new file here. All right. File, place. And let me get this new one that I just made. Whoa, that's huge. All right. So what you'll see is when you zoom in on it, right? There's no vector line work or anything. It's just raster. Okay, so those are the trade-offs, right? Depending on what you want to try to do. Let's see here. What does this look like? I'm curious when I change its transparency a bit, sort of tone it down. We end up losing some of the line work as well, which is unfortunate. I don't know why this looks so dark compared to what I got over here, but then again, when you do the line work, the make 2D, sometimes you get a bunch of stray curves, right? Like I have this and this, right? So you have to go back through and just sort of audit some things and clean some things up. or sometimes the edges, the curves don't quite go all the way through. So I don't necessarily want that, but I do want to, oops, select this, move it up to that, select that. There we go. Sort of stretch these things out or redraw some lines to sort of extend them. So there's no silver bullet, right, when it comes to creating these graphics. That's why I'm saying you could use Illustrator, but I really hate seeing all these lines here. Those look dumb. They're unnecessary. Only time you need to see them is when you have an actual corner, right? So, but suffice to say, the world's silliest looking Denny's over here. Let's see. Suffice to say, there's trade-offs depending on what you want to do and how you want to do it. So it's really kind of up to you. Now it's going to bug me if I don't clean this up somehow. I'm such a loser. All right. So anyway, from here, right, I could take any one of these graphics and start to place them. I'll just copy and then paste. Command V, Command C, Command V. This might not be a very good scale. Even if it is scaled down less, sometimes you might like sort of put it right here, right? And it doesn't look like it fits in with the rest of the three-dimensional parts of the model because it's sort of sitting on top of this thing. This building would occlude part of this, right? And so there's several different ways you can do that. Let me just think about this just for a moment. Let's see. Can you do a mask, path, shape? There should be a way to do a mask. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my own custom shape, sort of a window around the parts of this that I want to see and leaving out the parts that I want to sort of mask out. So I'll just use the pen tool really quickly. And I'm going to lock all these other layers here so I don't accidentally screw anything up. I'm just going to draw a shape with the pen tool, just sort of snapping around. I'm going to make this so that I can see through it all the way. Let me just close it up. There we go. So now I should be able to take this graphic and this graphic and that graphic. And let's see here. I should be able to mask. Where is it? Clipping mask. There we go. So I'm going to object, clipping mask, and make. Okay, so now this shape is just showing, is the window showing just the parts of this graphic that I want to see. I've masked the rest of it out. Kind of weird, no? But that's how graphics work these days. So clipping mask, make, right? And then, if I go back here and click, double click, you can still see the shape that I use as the mask. I can double click on it and start to edit it if I want or move it around as needed. So it's editable. It remembers that. It's non-destructive in that sense. Okay. All right. That's a lot to digest all at once, isn't it? But hopefully it's kind of helpful, right? So in Illustrator, let me just take one of these, for instance, right? I might be mapping something along the lines of, here, let me just resize this a little better. Something along the lines of, let's say, bus stops. I don't know where the bus stops really are, but pretend that I know somehow. Put one right here and put one over back here. right? So you can see the problem. This looks just fine, and this one looks just fine. That one doesn't. That one doesn't. This one doesn't, right? That building, that part of the building needs to, occlude it, right? And so again, that's where I would start to mask these things. Make sure you go to the layers tab, it has these sort of sheets that are layered. That's the icon. Make sure that they're all in the same layer. So you can keep things organized on different layers. And here I'm just going to simply go to the pen tool, and I'm just going to make, just like I did before, make a window around the part that I want to see. Let's do that. Let's close it up. Select that, and then the thing underneath, get object, clipping mask, make. Now it's clipped. All right. We could do the same thing over here. Oops. You just zoom in so it's a little easier to see. Select that and that, object, clip mask, make. There it is. All right, so now you can see it looks like it's going back down on the ground behind that building, whatever, right? Whatever it's pointing to. I could do the same thing over here to take care of that corner, or to take care of this corner. I mean, I have to do it now, right? So I might as well. More practice, the better, right? I should practice what I preach. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm creating a mask around the parts I want to see. Everything outside that mask will then be masked out. We think about masking tape. Same principle. And of course I'll do this one as well. Why not? Let's see. There we are. Not sure what's going on with that line. Ugh. Let's see here. Yeah, that line needs to move over here and connect up, right? Come on now. There we go. Okay. Right. So maybe I need some text now. Illustrator, you definitely want to do the text, right? So, I might just pick something pretty unobtrusive, maybe Helvetica or Arial or something like that. Helvetica Neue works pretty nicely. Maybe set it to like a size 6, and maybe even smaller. I mean, or maybe I'm just really going small here, but right, you could always begin to sort of give it a key or a legend, right? Talk about, oops, bus stops, whatever. Make a legend over here with the kinds of things that you're mapping. Okie doke. So that's the crash course in Illustrator. It's a lot to remember and a lot to learn. At this point, I'd probably stop the demonstration, have you try some things, and then just ask a bunch of questions. All right, we can troubleshoot from there. Let me go ahead and stop sharing and stop recording at this point.